Good greetings to you all in this, the first week of 2022. And no doubt by now we've all received many messages from friends, from family, perhaps from devotionals wishing us a joyful, a peaceful, a healthy and prosperous 2022. But I'd like to add one more thing, and that is to wish you all a restful year. And of course, rest can be very much in our control. If we spend more time with Jesus, I believe we can become a whole lot more restful. And that's a very wise thing to do. There's a prayer that I pray quite often. And it goes like this: grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A prayer that was written in the 1930s, and one I'm sure we've all seen around in many places, and sometimes even has pride of place in our homes. It's a very thought-provoking prayer, and one that, if we are mindful of it and we put it into practice, will help us as we journey in this sometimes very difficult life. We, of course, all crave wisdom, don't we? We all want more wisdom. But I think it's important to differentiate between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is about facts. Wisdom, however, is about astuteness. It's about intelligence. It's about insightfulness. It's about using the facts and the knowledge we have wisely. By way of an example, I have a look at one of the branches of creation of the animal kingdom, one that we all love so very dearly: snakes. Now, having just said that, I'm sure that a cold chill went down the spine of some people. But we come to know more about snakes by reading about them, by looking at pictures. And if one is then walking along a pathway, perhaps out in nature somewhere, and we come across a snake, particularly one that we see here quite often in the Matat area, a puff adder, we would be able to identify it because we have some knowledge of what a puff adder looks like. But the one thing we shouldn't do is bend down and try and pick that snake up. That is wisdom. And the same applies in our spiritual walk. We often know many facts. We read the Bible regularly and can quote many scriptures. But do we use those scriptures wisely? Do we put them into practice? Because that is wisdom. And one of the books that helps us significantly to gain wisdom is the book of Proverbs, a collection of sayings by arguably one of the wisest men in the Bible, King Solomon of Israel. And I want to read just a few verses from the Proverbs prologue. And it's Proverbs 1, verses 2 to 5, and I read from the New Living Translation. Their purpose, that is the Proverbs of Solomon, is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. And right throughout the book of Proverbs, we see that the sayings cover all the activities of humankind. Wisdom abounds, and it's very easy to read. I suggest you do it to help to increase your wisdom. And that particular short passage tells us much. It tells us that it teaches us, the Proverbs teach us wisdom. It gives us insight and vision for our time going forward to make the right decisions. Whether we are wise or whether we are simple, Proverbs helps us all. It teaches us to live a disciplined and successful life, to come to know what is right and just and fair. Those are three virtues so sadly lacking in this world today: righteousness, justice, and equity. It teaches us too about discernment, about acting prudently and acting with caution. That old adage comes to mind that says, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Yes, the wise don't rush in. And then it tells us that we need to stop and listen. Even the wise need to stop and listen because they can gain more wisdom and more knowledge. Wisdom is a gift of the Holy Spirit. A gift that we can read more about, or there are many gifts that we can read about in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 4 to 11. And the beauty about it is that we can ask for those gifts. We can ask for the gift of wisdom. James tells us that very clearly in his epistle, chapter 1, verse 5. If any of you is lacking in wisdom, ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to you. I want to end with one final thought, and it revolves around a quote, or perhaps a prayer that was prayed by St. Augustine going back right to the 4th and 5th century. And he said, or prayed, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you." Yes, rest in God. That is wisdom. Rest, and we will find ourselves listening so much better. We'll feel far more relaxed and then be able to hear more from God and end up gaining more wisdom. So let us all resolve to spend more time with Jesus this year. It's one of the wisest things we can do. I pray for all of us that we will have a peaceful and restful 2022, and that we grow in the precious gift of wisdom.